Hello. Thank you for joining us for this second meditation. I hope you are all staying healthy and well during this difficult time. My hymn for this week is I Heard the Voice of Jesus Say, which is one of my favorite hymns. The music is so incredibly beautiful. It's taken from a traditional English tune, and the text, I think, is very applicable to us during Lent, especially as it relates to the gospel that we heard on the third Sunday of this season. Let's take a look at this hymn verse by verse. The first verse is loosely based on the famous passage from the Gospel according to St. Matthew. Come to me, all you who labor and are burdened, and I will give you rest. Christ is the eternal Paschal Lamb sacrificed for all, and that's what we are building towards in this season of Lent. We know how this story ends. Christ is victorious against sin and death, against all anxiety and desolation. There is no reason why we should not lay our burdens at his feet. He has already carried them on the cross. As St. Augustine says, you have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our heart is restless until it rests in you. The second verse is a poetic telling of the gospel that we heard on the third Sunday of Lent from John of the woman at the well. In the gospel, Jesus breaks the cultural barrier between Jews and Samaritans to ask the woman for a drink. She, confused, wonders why he has chosen to speak to her, let alone asked her for something. Then Jesus turns the table on her. If you knew who is saying to you, give me a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water. Again, confused, she wonders what water he will give her as the well is deep. And he says, the water I shall give will become in whoever drinks of it a spring of water welling up to eternal life. As it is told in the Gospel, this story is from a third-person perspective. We act as bystanders to this strange interaction at Jacob's well. The hymn, on the other hand, puts us right in the Samaritan woman's shoes. For it was she who heard the voice of Jesus say to her, whoever drinks the water I shall give will never thirst. But Christ does not just speak to her. He speaks to all of us, and it has been a long-standing tradition in the Church to imagine yourself prayerfully as a personage in these gospel stories. And this is what this hymn tries to achieve for us. For even though we do not hear Christ as man's voice in front of us, we hear Christ as Word's voice each and every Mass. And when, on the third Sunday of Lent, the priest or deacon proclaimed this passage from the Gospel according to St. John, Christ spoke to each and every one of us. We all heard the voice of Jesus say, if you knew who is saying to you, give me a drink, you would have asked him and he would have given you living water. All we need to do is have faith and to ask. The last verse paraphrases a passage from John, this time from his rebuke of the Pharisees just after being faced with the woman caught in adultery. He says to them, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Jesus repeats this message in the Gospel we heard from the fourth Sunday of Lent, also from John of the man born blind. He says, while I am in the world, I am the light of the world. Returning, however, to the rebuke of the Pharisees, the passage with the woman caught in adultery does have some ties to the woman at the well, mainly in his compassion and mercy towards them. In the same way that there is confusion when Christ says that he has the waters of eternal life, the Pharisees wonder here, who is this man who can supersede the law of Moses? Jesus' answer, I am the light of the world. Finally, the gospel that we hear on this fifth Sunday of Lent speaks to us of the voice of Jesus calling Lazarus from the tomb and from death. This is not contradictory, but complementary to the gospel that we heard last Sunday, in which Jesus physically puts mud on the eyes of the man born blind to cure him. Both Christ's touch in the Eucharist and his voice in the Word are equally powerful. Though the Eucharist is not universally available right now, this hymn reminds us that we can find solace and strength in his Word. This hymn speaks to us in this dark time. Go to Christ with all of your labors and burdens and anxieties, for you will only find rest in him. Go to Christ and drink of his waters of eternal life, for though everything around us will grow old and wither, his water will not. Go to Christ and follow his light. Though there may be darkness around us, look for him, make time for him, and you can have his true light within you. And let us conclude by remembering the words of the psalmist. What can bring us happiness? Many say. Let the light of your face shine on us, O Lord.